Hello, and welcome for this first webinar series on the impact of the coronavirus crisis from the Geneva Center for Security Policy. The GCSP is a non-profit international foundation physically based in Geneva, Switzerland, but we have a global network of experts and participants in our activity. Our mandate and mission is to promote international peace and security, and also prepare and transform individuals and organizations so that they can create a safer world. We do that through different activities: executive education, public discussion, research, as well as innovative fellowship program for executives in transition. Our community is comprised of more than 6,500 alumni, and our foundation council is comprised of 52 states, of which all the permanent member of the Security Council. The values we promote are impartiality, independence, and inclusivity. The current crisis that is approaching 1 million infection with 50,000 deaths is a crisis of enormous magnitude. 2 days ago, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, COVID-19 is the greatest test that we have faced together since the formation of the United Nations. Some would say that it was a black swan characterized by an extreme rarity, but a very severe impact. But if we look carefully at what happened, we see that this crisis was, in a way, already foreseen by some organization. For instance, the CIA Global 2025 Trends Report, published in 2008, mentioned that the emergence of a novel, highly transmissible and virulent human respiratory illness, for which there are no adequate countermeasures, could initiate a global pandemic. If a pandemic disease emerged by 2025, internal and cross-border tension and conflict will become more likely as nations struggle with degraded capabilities to control the movement of population seeking to avoid infection or maintain access to resources. If a pandemic disease emerges, it probably will first occur in an area marked by high population density and close association between humans and animals, such as many areas of China and Southeast Asia, where human population live in close proximity to livestock. Several intelligence agencies, as well as academic papers, has warned us about an incoming pandemic. And so that was not completely unforeseeable. What is taking us by surprise is the exponential growth of this pandemic situation. An exponential growth is characterized by a growth that, for instance, double every iteration. And so if we take this simple rule, for instance, we see that very quickly the magnitude of which the end result reach is beyond imagination. So if you think about something that doubles every iteration after 50 iterations, the magnitude is really difficult to process mentally. To give you a more visible manifestation of what exponential growth is all about, you can see here that for a long time you don't see much, and suddenly you have what we call the exponential explosion. In a way, if we look at the current curve of development, we are seeing that it is matching some exponential growth. The UN 2 days ago, WHO mentioned that we're approaching exponential growth. Obviously, exponential growth will not continue forever, because once you have enough people that have contracted the disease, then it will recede. The whole question is, what are the strategies to put in place in order to flatten the curve so that a health system could cope with this crisis? But beyond that, what is important to note is that Most of us are thinking in linear terms as well as government. The problem is that when we're faced with exponential growth, the more time passes, the more the measures that we can take, if we think in linear terms, are becoming irrelevant. So, what are already the possible visible development that we can see when it comes to international politics? One of the most visible one is what happened in Europe. Jacques Delors, the former president of the European Commission, said a few days ago, the climate that seems to hang over the heads of states and governments and the lack of European solidarity pose a mortal danger to the EU. Enrico Letta, a former prime minister of Italy, said that the EU face a deadly risk. A few days ago, finance minister gathered through digital means to discuss what could be done to support the European Union by possibly issuing so-called Corona bonds, a proposed joint debt instrument which all member countries would guarantee. 9 countries, including France, Spain, Italy, and Portugal, backed the ideas, while others, like Germany and the Netherlands, rejected it. Dutch finance minister called for the European Union to prepare a report on which EU countries would have to build financial buffers. This was met by remarks by Prime Minister of Portugal, who said that that statement is repugnant in the framework of the EU. So we can say that there are already visible manifestations in terms of European solidarity and stability. A poll conducted in Italy found out that 88% of Italians felt Europe was failing to support Italy, while 67% saw the EU membership as a disadvantage. We have seen development like in Hungary, where laws of emergency were taken that gives unlimited power to the head of state, and there is no boundaries to that. The issue of the role of technology is something that has to come also on our radar screen, especially since states are taking emergency measures to conduct surveillance through different digital means. Currently, there are more than 24 countries in the world that have taken some measures in that field. Today, a consortium of 103 private and civil society organizations issued a call to warn states that the COVID-19 crisis should not warrant government to use this crisis and the virus as a cover to introduce invasive and pervasive digital surveillances. This technology has also been used as a global war for narrative. We've seen that after the EU came to help the Chinese authorities in January and February, the Chinese have reciprocated, but have used that as a strong PR exercise to demonstrate Chinese influence in the world. Russia has done the same over the last few days, has sent some medical aid to the United States. So here we're seeing a global reshaping of the geopolitical rivalries based for now on a lot of public relations. Economic impact could obviously not be dismissed. A report by the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs that was published yesterday mentioned that the global economy could shrink by up to 1% by 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic, a reversal from the previous forecast of 2.5% growth for this year. Finally, a famous Harvard economist, co-author of a book called This Time is Different, 8 Centuries of Financial Crisis, Kenneth Rogoff, was interviewed in the New York Times and was said that I feel like the 2008 financial crisis was just a dry run for this. This is already shaping up as the deepest dive on record for the global economy for over 100 years. Everything depends on how long it lasts, but if this goes on for a long time, it's certainly going to be the mother of all financial crises. Obviously, these remarks are just introductory remarks to show the extent of the current financial crisis.